how to predict the future using Chinese astrology or the horoscope called Bazi or saju palja in Korean. I hate calling it Chinese astrology because this form of calculating the future, not predicting the future, not fortune telling, not divination, if you call it anything else besides predictive analytics, you're wrong. In other words, Baji or Saju Palja is 100% scientific, 100% accurate, and 100% correct all the time. There, I said it. You're going to think, well, this is ridiculous. I've gone to get my Chinese horoscope read, and it seems to be right maybe 60% of the time. It's only right that half the time. It's just entertainment. It's just superstition. It's not. It's not. It's 100% correct. It's 100% scientific, and it's 100% dependable and right all the time. And I'm going to explain to you why. And I'm going to show you the scientific and the physics reasons behind how Saju Palja or Baji actually works. And when you see it, you're going to think, oh my God, our ancestors, they might not have had microscopes. They might not have had spectrometers or MRI machines, but they were absolute geniuses for having figured this stuff out. Yeah. Being able to figure out the rhythms of the universe without having any sophisticated technological equipment or measuring tools, just by observation, is just freaking genius. And I'm going to show you that Saju Palja, or the Chinese horoscope astrology, is exactly that. It's based on old, ancient, super brilliant, genius physics, cold, hard physics that you can confirm today. To do that, we're going to touch on fractals, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what a fractal is, because most of you guys get fractals wrong. You think, well, a fractal is just something you see in a kaleidoscope. You might have seen, most kids won't even know what a kaleidoscope is, but well, we're gonna discuss that in detail, because you have to understand how fractals work, mathematical fractals, in order for you to be able to see, holy shit, this whole rat, mouse, tiger, dragon thing is actually based on simple physics. Really simple physics. Oh, let me show you what it looks like. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves. All right, so this is basically the Chinese horoscope. This is basically what you're looking at when we discuss the Chinese horoscope. 12 different animals. So why are there 12 animals, and why these animals, and all these questions? Here, I'm going to show you a bigger picture of all this stuff that comes into place. And then these animals correspond to years. Well, why do these animals correspond to these years, and how do these years make any, what's all this about? And okay, so here's a zoom in of the years that each animal corresponds to. So if you were born, here, let me zoom into one of these things. Okay, so basically, if you were born in any one of these years, you are a rat. Any one of these years, you're a pig. Any one of these years, you're a dog. Basically, what that means is that you have tendencies like these animals. If you were born in 1998, you're like a tiger, or 2010, you're like a tiger, or 2022. If you're born in 1989 or 1977, you're like a snake. But that's kind of insulting. I'm not like a snake. These are allegorical definitions of your characteristics and the way you relate to the universe, the way you relate to the physical world around you. I'll explain that later. But this is what the Chinese horoscope looks like in simplified form. In complexified form, it looks like this. Here, I'll give you one of the full versions here. This is what the Chinese horoscope looks like. And again, I hate calling it the Chinese horoscope because this wisdom, this genius calculation system existed even before China existed. I can't call it the Korean horoscope because nobody Googles it by Korean horoscope. And besides, this again existed before Korea existed. So it's neither Chinese nor Korean. There, I said it. Okay. So this is the complexified form, and if I were to translate some of this in English, not all of it, but some of it, Oh, this is even more complex. Woohoo! You see how you can divide and divide and subdivide further and further and further? Anyway, if I were to just take the biggest chunks and explain this in English, it would look like this. There are 6 elements that we're touching on here, and then there are 6 planets, and then there are, is that 8 planets? Yeah, 8 planets, and then there are horses, 8 more animals, fowls, dragons, wolves, tortoises, and then there are directions, and then there are all sorts of strange Chinese words that have no English translation, but they actually do. Okay, so that's what we're looking at, and this is the Bazi system. This is actually a Feng Shui dial, but Feng Shui is based on Bazi anyway. And look at this. Notice this. This is interesting, isn't it? Does this look familiar? Does any of this look familiar? Just as associative thinking. Look at this here, and then look at this, and there's actually a yin yang in the middle. There's supposed to be, at least here, one of these. I don't see one here, but anyway, does any of that look familiar? I'll show you what that is. That is, ta-da! This. Wait, what? Yeah, look. Here, I'll zoom this in. Now, I'm showing you all this random stuff because it's you have to associate what this is so that you can see the common mathematical formula used across all these motifs. So you have the trigrams here, and then you have the yin yang in the center. There's usually a yin yang in the center. They didn't draw the yin yang in the center here, but there is. So yin yang in the center, and the trigrams. They're called trigrams because there's like 3 sticks. Okay, ta-da! Yin yang, and then the trigrams. And I'll explain in another video why this is heaven, why this is earth, and why this is fire, and this is water. I'll give you a little hint though. Why is this water? How is water made? It's H2O. Did you get that? H and 2 O's. H is the explosive fiery compound, and then the O is the more yin version. You have three parts is water, so this is water. Wait, how did they know the molecular structure of water back then, 10,000 years? Anyway, yeah, isn't that cool? Okay, so since you know now what we're looking at in terms of what is Bazi, or what is the Chinese astrology system, what's it based on? It's based on that stuff. But then what's that stuff based on? That's what we're gonna answer now. Before we do that though, I gotta address the statistics question. Everyone asks, well, isn't it just statistical? It only seems like it's right 60% of the time or 50% of the time if I go have my Chinese astrology read. There are 2 factors that make it appear to only be 60% right. Well, this year's gonna be a great year for you, and then, but I got divorced, I declared bankruptcy, and I got in a car accident, and my knee is never gonna be the same again. But the Chinese astrologer said this year is going to be a great year for me. So it must just be superstition. Let me put it to you this way: if that actually happened, and there were all these favorable chi or energies or harmonics that would have favored your condition, your situation, but they didn't occur. What that means is that you were making all the wrong decisions that should have got you killed, but you didn't get killed and you're still alive. So that's how favorable that year was. In other words, if that year hadn't been a favorable year for you and you made the same decisions in the same way using your same personality and temperament, you should have actually died. Or worse. Been a partner with SBF and ended up in some federal pen. But hey, you're free and out and alive. Okay, so that's neither here nor there. You can't prove it, you can't disprove it. So I'm going to give you stuff you can prove. Is the Chinese horoscope just statistical? It's just right on a statistical level, and it's you can't rely on it. No, You can 100% rely on it all the time. It's 100% correct, 100% accurate all the time, 100% of the time. Uh, just like gravity. Just like gravity. Is gravity statistically correct? Where if I drop this pen, statistically it's going to hit the ground. Nobody says that. Everybody agrees. Everybody's like, well, every scientist. There's no way of measuring an exception for gravity. There's no way of observing, at least on our planet, an exception for gravity. If you look up at the stars, you might be able to come up with some theory for why light bends a certain way and all that, but that's still theoretical. But as far as this particular Earth experience goes, which is all we're concerned about because we were born on Earth, and we were born with the energies that we're born with that the Earth had when we were born, okay? So, from our perspective, gravity 100% works. Nobody sits there and says, oh, gravity is statistically only 72% accurate. Nobody sits there and says that. Why? Because it always works. No, it doesn't. It doesn't always work. What do you mean? It's just like the Chinese horoscope. It doesn't always work. Wait, I thought you said it always works all the time. If I drop this pen, will it hit the Earth? No, it actually hit my notepad and it didn't hit the Earth. Yeah, but that's just an exception because there was something of greater mass, there was something of greater resistance than the air underneath the pen between the Earth. Resistance. Resistance is actually a physical law, just like gravity is. So, if there are two laws at play, and one law is superseding the other law, and one law happens to exert greater force, notice how I'm speaking physics professor language, then both laws are still valid until one of the laws becomes exhausted, or irrelevant. For example, you might actually talk to a guy that says, no, gravity doesn't work at all. Gravity only seems to work like half of 1%, less than even 1% of the time. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, Steve? And Steve's like, dude, look. He makes this thing and he lets it go. Bam! And instead of it falling, it keeps going up all the time. What the fuck? It's like, Steve, you work in a hot air balloon factory, dude. You work in a helium balloon factory. Of course everything goes up. Now, there's a new law. It's called the law of atmospheric pressure. Ta-da! Density, atmospheric density. So if this is lighter, it's like putting a ball underwater. It's going to go up instead of down. Atmospheric density. So now we have three laws. So we have resistance in the form of either paper, or we have resistance in the form of hell, we can even have resistance in the form of an upward draft, right? So let's say Jerry says the same thing. No, I dropped this thing and it just keeps going sideways and up. It doesn't go down. And you're like, dude, Jerry, look around you. You work in a goose down factory that happens to also manufacture portable fans. So of course, everything you drop goes around and up and all that. So there are multiple factors that make it look like gravity doesn't always work. But does gravity always work? Yes, it does. It's exactly the same with Chinese horoscope or the Bazi system. It's 100% absolutely all the time effective and correct, except for the fact that there are other forces that coincidentally are just as physically real, dependable, and predictable that happen to temporarily exert force on your life, on your relationships, on your mind, and on your emotions, on your wealth, on your money, than just your yearly horoscope. Like what? When it comes to gravity, I've already explained to you the other forces, right? There's physical obstruction, there is current flow, like wind, that happens to go the opposite direction of gravity. Then there's atmospheric density or pressure. Then there's maybe there's maybe you drop something, and maybe you drop something and it still goes up, and you're like, no, gravity doesn't work. It's just it's a superstition. Gravity's a superstition, because my experience, every time I drop something, it goes up. And you're like, well, maybe you dropped a feather and you work in a feather fan factory. Maybe you work in a helium balloon. No, I don't. No, I don't. I work in a metal steel ball bearing company. I'm like, really? Yeah, I work in a steel ball bearing company. It's real metal. It's real, made of iron and what, nickel or whatever it's made of. I don't know what ball bearings are made of. And every time I drop it, it goes up. You go and you join Terrence at his place of work, and you notice that what he does is he works at a ball bearing factory that also manufactures ferrite magnets or something. So there's magnetic force that also happens to coexist at the same time as gravity does. But nobody says, well, gravity's not reliable. It's 100% reliable, just like the Chinese zodiac horoscope Bazi, saju, palja is 100% reliable. Ta-da! But okay, but that's functionally, so if you're intelligent, you're going to sit and say that's practically functionally useless to me, because I don't care how reliable the underlying Chinese horoscope is. If it tells me that I'm going to be rich this year, and this is rabbit year. For rabbit year, there are multiple different types of horoscopes. 2023 is going to be rabbit year. There are multiple different horoscopes for which rabbit year is very, very prosperous. Okay? It is very, very, for pigs, for tigers, for rabbits, not rabbits. You know what? I didn't prepare this part. I'm trying to go calculate by memory, and it's not working well. Tigers, rats, it's going to be prosperous for, and sheep, it's going to be prosperous for, but there's like one or two others that this year brings prosperity. But at the end of 2023, you might have had a bankruptcy. You might have lost all your money. You might have got totally liquidated trading leverage without my signals telling you when to buy and sell. Now that's what I do professionally, so you know. I use future prediction algorithms to buy and sell and trade at high leverage, 30x or 40x leverage. So yeah, if I'm wrong by 1 or 2% margin of error, if I think it's going to go up and it goes down by 2%, then I lose all my money. But if I think it's going to go up and it goes up by 2%, just 2%, and I've done a 50x long, I've doubled my money. That's how easy it is to double your money. How long does it take? It takes like 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes it only takes like 2 or 3 minutes to double your money if you use leverage. But isn't that dangerous? Danger is a function of ignorance. If I know exactly when something is going to go up and I'm always right, how dangerous is it? It's only dangerous to the people that don't know, right? And I'm not always right. I'm only right about once every... I'm only wrong about once every 17 times. So I make money 17 times, I lose money once. But that's... The reason why I lose money isn't because my calculation was wrong or my calculation system was wrong. It's because I actually have to sleep. And I actually have to like take phone calls and stuff. That's the... So, that having been said, I'm telling you this because it has to do with the ability to predict the future. And my assertion is that the ability to predict the future is 100% possible and 100% always correct, 100% always right, except for the extenuating circumstances or the mitigating laws, the other, I'm going to sneeze, hold on, other factors. So if you sit there and think, well, so then the Chinese horoscope is useless because it can't predict my future 100% correctly all the time. You don't sit there and think gravity is useless, right? when it comes to gravity, what you do is you look around and see what other types of laws could be at play. If you're going to drop something, you look around and see, hey, is there a glass table underneath this thing I'm going to drop? You look around and say, hey, I want this thing to go to the ground, but am I sitting in a, I want this ball to hit the ground, but am I swimming in a swimming pool? You look around for other potentially conflicting laws that might be simultaneously at work. You look around for things that might foil or might go against what you expect will happen, and then you mitigate them, and then you fix them, you solve them, right? That's all you have to do with the way the Chinese zodiac works. So, is it possible then to just like gravity, since gravity is affected by magnets, since gravity is affected by air pressure, by resistance, by wind currents, and it's possible to know all the other extenuating circumstances so that I can actually physically correctly predict the future at 9.6 meters per second squared. Predict when this is going to hit the Earth. I can predict that. Is it possible to do the same thing with Chinese zodiac? Yes, it is. And I will tell you what those other factors are. It took me 21 minutes to say that. The reason why your Chinese horoscope thing doesn't work is that, and there's a hint, except it's in Korean. Most of you guys don't speak Korean, so you're not going to get this hint. It's called saju, palja. Saju, which means 4. Sa is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Saju. There are 4 factors, not just one. So if you're born in rabbit year, if you're born in pig year, or whatever it is, you have the tendencies of that animal, the main characteristics of that animal. But only for the year. That's only one factor. There are 3 other factors. What are they? What do we have? Year, then we have month, then we have day, then we have, you got it, hour. That's all we have. Those are the 4 graduations, those are the 4 precisions with which we use to calculate the 4th dimension, time. Let that sink in for a second. Human beings largely, now remember, this is about the human experience. Wealth, does a tree care how much money you have? Does your cat care how much money you have? Money is a human experience, okay? Does the mountain care how much love you share? Does the wind care how much anger you feel? It's like these are human experiences, and they're 100% only related to the human cognition. And so what the saju palja or the Bazi system does is it relates what you're going to feel, how you're going to experience the universe at a certain year, at a certain month, at a certain day, and at a certain time. So if you know all 4 of these factors, now you can start to more accurately predict whether your life is going to go well, whether this pen is going to drop and hit this. Because just like knowing whether there's a huge electrical magnet or wind pressure or some kind of physical obstruction between you and the earth, you can predict the other major factors that impact your fortune, your incoming experience of what's going to happen to your life. So I've addressed that. Is the Chinese horoscope statistically correct? Is it only statistically 91% or 72% correct? No, it's 100% correct all the time. The only reason it appears to only be useful and correct 60% of the time is either because the person interpreting it for you was an idiot and he's wrong, or number two, he didn't factor in the other forces of day, hour, and month. Because most fortune tellers only try and tell you what your fortune is going to be based on your year of birth. And that's kind of silly, right? Because if you were born in, let's say, I don't know, what does this say? Who cares? Let's say you were born in pig year. Then every single person in that year is going to have pig-like tendencies and they're all going to behave the same? No. Everybody born in every single year, even if they're all the same animals, they all have different tendencies. Some are introverted, some are extroverted. Some are good at math, some are good at art, some are good at nothing. See? See how that works? So you have to go into what month they were born, what day they were born, and what hour they were born. Now, if you want to discuss how similar those people are, all you have to do is go to a hospital. The baby born room, whatever that's called, is that the like maternity room, or no, that's like the OBGN, the wing, or whatever it is. And go to where the babies are born and track all the babies that are born at the same within the same 2-hour window. You'd be amazed at how similar they are, their lives. It's like twins. They're born at the same time. They're often born in the same 2-hour window. Some twins aren't, and they're very different. Wow, that just is a mind boggler. Yeah, it is. But now that I've explained the big picture of how, and I've explained to you why the Chinese astrology system, the Feng Shui Bazi system, is not just a superstitious, statistically correct thing, that I've given you a corollary as to why it can be 100% accurate. I'm going to show you why it is 100% accurate. In other words, I haven't shown you that it is 100% accurate. I've just given you an example of something else, gravity, that is 100% accurate but just doesn't seem to work all the time. And I've explained to you why gravity doesn't work all the time, because of other factors. But I haven't actually explained to you how the Chinese astrology thing actually really works. Let's see, what else do I need to explain first? Okay, but let's start here. How does Chinese astrology work? Okay. Chinese astrology works based on time. It's a method of calculating the fourth dimension, which is time, and it's a method of understanding what the passing of time, how the passing of time impacts us. More precisely, how the passing of time is experienced from a human perspective. I'll give you an example of what that means. If you've done any meditation, and you probably have, because you're listening to this long explanation of something that's considered metaphysical, it's not. It's just 100% based on physics, okay? But if you're into metaphysics, then you probably tried to meditate, and what happens when you meditate? Something we can all identify with. You sit there, and first, you feel relaxed. This is great. This is awesome. You sit there, and nothing's changed. Nothing differs. Nothing happens. And yet, your experience of the universe, your experience of your life, changes over time. What do I mean? If you've done any meditation, you know what I'm talking about. You're sitting there and you think, this is so peaceful, so relaxing, I'm getting sleepy. And then you experience anxiety. Did I forget? Did I lock the door? Did I leave my? Is he is he gonna did I forget to fear is the first thing that pops into mind when you start meditating. And then when you ignore all that and you just concentrate on your mantra, or you concentrate on your breathing, or you concentrate on the circulation of your chi, or whatever meditation you happen to be doing, there's as many different types of meditations as there are thoughts in the universe. So there's not like, well, there's only 108 meditations. No, you could meditate on turtles and ice cream if you wanted to. That's how many different meditations there are. You ignore the fear. You sit there, you ignore the fear, and what happens? You start remembering the people that pissed you off when you were 7 years old. All the junior high school kids that made fun of you. You start getting angry. Like, why the fuck am I sitting here meditating? It's like, why didn't society give me more money? Why didn't my parents make me born prettier? Why weren't my parents not ugly? That I have this weird looking nose. You actually start getting angry. And then when this anger thing, you finally let it pass you. You keep focusing on for some reason you start feeling really, really happy. You're like, and you've done nothing. You're just sitting there. And you go through all these different emotions by doing absolutely nothing, and nothing's happening to you. But is nothing happening to you? No. The passing of time is happening to you. And you experience time emotionally. Remember that. Because Chinese astrology, Bazi or saju palja, is about the measurement of time and how that time passing will change your experience of life. How that time passing will create wealth for you, will create poverty for you, will create chaos for you, will create harmony for you, will create anger for you, will create love for you. Just like in meditation. The only difference with meditation is that you are observing your emotions passively, without measuring them. You're not sitting there and you're thinking, with a stopwatch. Oh, geez, I just felt fear. That was 17 minutes and 23 seconds and 0.2 seconds. Fear, okay. Wait, I just got really angry. That's 37 minutes and 12. You're not doing that. You can't do that because every time, if you were to do that, if you were to try and annotate the shifts of your emotions, you would actually start seeing neat patterns, really, really weird patterns of how every single time you're 37 minutes into this meditation at this hour, if you do it at the same time, which is funny because what is it, tiger hour? I think it's like to 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, or something like that is tiger hour on the 24th in the morning. And the funniest thing is, what are humans most afraid of all the 12 animals? Well, snakes, yeah, but really tigers. In the past, especially in Asia, there were killer tigers in the mountains and all that. Anyway, tiger hour is when most people experience most of their nightmares. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., I think. Or is it 2:30? And anyway, I forget the exact times. You would think I would know this by now, but I forget. It's fascinating, isn't it? Most of you guys get your nightmares at exactly the same time of night. Whoa, weird. Is that a coincidence? No, it's a law. It's a physical law of how time affects the human experience. Okay, now that I've said that, I've explained to you that if it looks like the Bazi system isn't working for you, it said that this year I was going to be prosperous and I got into a bankruptcy and a car crash and it just went wrong. I've explained to you that it's because of the other three factors that you're not looking at, which are hour, day, and month, besides just the year. They all have the same 12 animals. So you could be born in pig year, but you could have been born in tiger month, and you could be born in snake day, and you could be born on chicken hour. Holy shit, I've got like 4 animals. PETA's definitely not gonna like this. Yeah, definitely not vegan. So what are they and how are they based? How are hours made up? Huh? How are days determined? Well, days just the Earth rotating once on its axis. It's tilted. What is it? 13 degrees or 16 degrees or something. It's always changing a little bit, but every time it does that, that's a day. But how are hours determined? Okay, but what about months? Oh, that's easy. A month is the amount of time it takes for the moon to rotate around the Earth. Okay. How are years determined? Well, that's easy. It's the amount of time that it takes for the Earth to go around the sun. Now, what's funny about this, every denomination is based on the rotation of the Earth. In other words, it's like, how long did it take for the moon to go around the Earth? Well, the moon went around the Earth in one lunar cycle. Does that help you? How long did the Earth go around how long did it take for the Earth to go around the sun? Well, it took 1 Terran cycle. It's like 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. Does that help you? It doesn't help you. In order to get a time, you have to figure out a ratio. It's all relative. So in order to figure out how often or how quickly the moon goes around the Earth, you have to give it some kind of other fixed point to compare it to. So what humans decided to do, since this is a human experience thing, and unless you're a ghost watching this, that's all you care about. You just care about the human experience. So from a human experience perspective, the closest thing we can relate to is the rotating of the Earth. So everything is based on the rotating of the Earth. Now, this may seem stupid and unrelated, but it's extremely pivotally crucial and critical to how the Chinese horoscope works and why it's 100% always correct, 100% always dependable, and 100% always right. So remember how this stuff works. The Earth rotates, and however long it takes to rotate, you compare that to however long it takes for, say, the moon to go around the Earth. So the Earth rotates 27 times, roughly 30 times, okay? Every time the moon goes around the Earth once. Okay, cool. Establish that lunar effect for the month. What about days? Well, since the moon is the closest thing, we figure out that for every one time the moon goes around the Earth, once the Earth goes and does its own spin, and we see the sun about 27 different times. We see the sun, then we don't see it. So, so those are the number of days in a month. What about the number of days in a year? Again, the Earth doing its rotation. How many times do we see the sun? By the time the Earth does an entire rotation around the sun, right around 360. Now, you take the number 360, and then you take the number 30. And what do you get? Number 30 and 360. 30, 360. 30, 360. Let's do it the other way. 360, 30. 360, 30. 360, 30. What is that? Isn't 30 about isn't 30 a multiple of, or isn't 360 a multiple of 30? Just about. How many times does it go in? How many times does the number 30 go into the number 360? 12. Fascinating, isn't it? The ratio is about 1 to 12. Okay, now remember that. Ratio is about 1 to 12. Okay, so we did hour of day. The hour of day is based on the angle of the Earth rotating relative to the fixed sun. How many times it rotates. Okay. So how did we divide the number of hours in a day by 12? Well, since the number of the moon ratio and the sun ratio is 12, 360 divided by 30 days, we just applied the same rule to the hours in a day. 12 hours per day, 12 hours per night. Isn't that kind of arbitrary? You sit there saying, there's nothing scientific about that. There's nothing scientific about that. Okay, hold your judgment yet. Hold your judgment, because we're not done. I wonder if you're following me here, if there's another way to explain this. Well, I'll just keep explaining. So, we know how hours are made, we know how days are made, but what about, and we know how months are made. Months are made by the moon, days are made by the rotation of the Earth, and then hours are just apparently just an arbitrary subdivision of you take the same 12 and you just say it. Well, we can divide the moon and the Earth rotation around the sun ratio by 12, so let's just divide the number of hours in a day by 12 too. It's kind of what it looks like. It just kind of looks like it's haphazard. 12, I guess. Okay. Leave that as a question mark in your mind. So the month is the moon, the year is the sun, and the day is the Earth rotating. The hour is just kind of arbitrary. But wait a second. If the month, what month are we in, is the moon's relationship to the Earth. Okay, moon goes around the Earth like this. Moon goes around the Earth like this. So every time the moon rotates around the Earth once, from our perspective, the moon is exactly the same. There's no difference between January and February and March and April, because it's just doing one loop. We're getting the same amount of energy in January 1st as we are in February 1st on the lunar calendar, at least, 28-day calendar. We're getting the same amount of energy. So why would there be a rat month and then a bull month and then a tiger month and a rat month when it's all the same? Because it's not all the same. Didn't you just say it's all the same? It's not. I'll show you why. As the moon goes around the Earth, one whole cycle, just the relationship between the moon and the Earth alone is exactly the same. But remember, we're also going around the sun. When we go around the sun, most people don't realize this. We don't go around the sun in a perfect circle. We go around in an ellipse. It's kind of egg-shaped. And there's a point at which we're closest to the sun. Here, I'll draw it for you. It looks like this. This is the sun, and we go around the sun like this. We do not go around the sun in a perfect circle like the middle, okay? So what that means is, if the Earth is, here, I've drawn it for you. Here's the Earth at the top. You see that? Earth at the top, and here's the moon. It's exactly the same from an Earth-Moon perspective, but let's look at this. This here, this Earth-Moon relationship, is very different than this Earth-Moon relationship. You see, the Earth and the Moon are exactly in the same place, except the way the Moon reflects the sun and the amount of sun that it reflects is different, because as we get closer to the sun, now watch this. Now watch, oops, I should have drawn it this way. I should have drawn it this way, and then I should have drawn this way. Okay, like this. So as we go around the sun, even if the Earth to the Moon relationship is Earth is on the bottom, Moon is on the top, Earth is on the bottom, Moon is on the top. It goes like this, but the relationship between how the Moon reflects the sun and how much of the sun it reflects is very different depending on what time of year. Ta-da! Isn't that weird? Are you starting to get that? Does chills down your spine? If you're only looking at the Moon every month, it's the same. But because the Earth and the Moon move together closer to the sun and away from the sun, the Moon's energy is different every month. Because all the Moon does is reflect the sun. That's all it does. It just reflects the sun. And it gives you what little gravity it gives you. So that's why even the monthly animals are all different for every month, even though it looks the same from if you're just looking at the Moon. That's why when if you don't know what the words apogee and perigee are, look them up. At perigee, when the Earth is closest to the sun, the Moon is brighter. When the Earth is farther away from the sun, farthest away from the sun, the Moon is less bright. And the Moon also revolves around the Earth in the same way, in an egg-shaped form. So when the Earth is closest to the Moon, or the Moon's closest to the Earth, it just looks bigger. It just looks huge. That's why you have the full moon and the new moon, and sometimes it's huge and sometimes it's tiny and all that. And you get werewolf movies where the Moon is super, super big because it just gets closer and farther away from the Earth as the Earth gets closer and farther away from the sun, causing the difference in energies between months. Even though it looks like we're back to square one, it's not the square one because, okay, so I've driven that point home. So that's why every single month has a different animal energy too. It has 12. But why 12? Couldn't there be like 17 different energies that we get? And let me explain that. I'll explain that in a second. I've already explained that the ratio between the Earth's rotation and the number of rotations it does while the Earth spins around the sun is 360. And I've already explained that you have about 30 rotations of the Earth for every one lunar rotation around the Earth. So remember that 360 divided by 30 is a multiple of 12. Okay. Now, okay, that's cool. So I guess that explains why the months have different animal energies, because there's a different influence called the sun influencing, making sure that every single rotation of the Moon around the Earth is different because our position around the sun is different. But wait a second. All the years have different animals too. Have you noticed that? Every year is also the same, right? That's where this whole Chinese astrology basis started from. But if you think about it, why would there be? Why would there be a difference between 2011 and 2012 when all we're doing really is just rotating the sun once? I can see how my life would be different if I was born super, super cold, super, super far away from the sun, versus if I was born right here, a super, super warm summer, and I'm born closest to the sun. I could see how my temperament or my disposition or maybe the rhythms of my life would be different. That's theoretically reasonable, understandable, right? But reality is, what's the difference between this year and next year? We're just doing one full rotation around the sun until we do 90 or 80 rotations around the sun, and then we're just old, crumpled, crinkled, wrinkled, and die. What's the difference between one year or the other? Aha, interesting, isn't it? I'm going to show you something funny. The difference between one month and another month was based on the fact that we had an external third-party situation called the sun, and we're approaching it and getting farther away from it. So, right? So what about the Earth and the sun then? It's not the moon, because we're not getting any closer or farther away from the moon relative to the moon. The distance, no, it's not the moon. I'm just going to say that. So there must be a fourth influence on the amount of energy. What are you talking about? What is this energy? I'll explain that too in a second. Now, at this point, I have to reinforce the fact that these, the four metrics by which we measure time are rotation of the Earth, the moon rotating around the Earth, and the Earth and the moon together rotating around the sun. Does that seem odd to you? Does something seem missing to you? I said saju, which means four. Four energies, four pillars. And I've only listed 3 astronomical phenomena that impacts our experience of the world. Rotation of the Earth, revolution of the moon, and revolution of the Earth. That's only 3. But there are 4 pillars? You got it. That's it. Wouldn't that be funny if I just stopped this video right now? I am going to show you NASA. Okay, here it is. Planets with the greatest gravity. This is NASA. And this is what NASA tells us. But this is kind of hard to interpret, so let's scroll down. Bam. Among all the planets in our solar system, Jupiter is the only planet whose gravity is higher than all the other planets. Isn't that amazing? So the greatest gravitational impacts, the influences that we experience on Earth as we go through our human life, as we go through our human experience, come from centripetal force of the Earth. Boom! The sun. The moon. And Jupiter. Jupiter is by far the most dense, biggest, Saturn's bigger, but Jupiter is just, oh, and by the way, NASA just released it, it's weird, I was doing the research on this, and I just got a related tweet, something just algorithmically popped up saying, NASA thinks that Jupiter was the very first planet around our solar system. Isn't that weird? The very first planet in our solar system. So we have Jupiter for the year. That's what makes 2003 different from 2004. Because every time we, with the moon and the Earth are bonded together, right? They travel together around the sun. So here's the sun in the middle, and the moon and the Earth are like around the sun. But every time, relative to the sun, every time we come back here, we're in the same place. Relative to the sun, we have the same amount of sun energy. But what's different is that Jupiter is out here somewhere, super far away, and it's rotating around at a different rate. So as the Earth rotates around the sun like this, boo, 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 here, boo, 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 boo. Jupiter is out here doing this. As the Earth is going, boop, 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 boop. Which is why we have 12 animals for the years. Fascinating, isn't it? It's not fascinating. If you have high IQ, you're not quite fascinated yet. You're not quite fascinated yet. This is This is the part that's really fascinating. Why are there 12 animals in the first place? Well, I told you, because the number of revolutions, the number of rotations that the Earth does on its axis, every time it goes around the sun once, and the number of times that the moon goes around the Earth every time the Earth rotates on itself, 30 versus 360. If you divide them, you get 12. I already told you that, so that's why we have the 12 animals. Yeah, but that's kind of a stretch, isn't it? The moon rotation to the sun versus the Earth's, the moon revolution to the sun versus the Earth's rotation around the sun. You divide those two and it just comes close to the number 12. That seems arbitrary, which is why we have 12 hours in a day and night and day. Still kind of seems arbitrary. There's not enough correlation. There's not enough parallelisms. There's not enough fractaling, which I'm going to explain to you in a second. There should have been a question that popped up in your mind right now. There should have been a question that popped up in your mind. The question that should have popped up in your mind right now is, well then, how many times does the Earth rotate around the sun for every one rotation Jupiter does around the sun? That's what you should have asked yourself. Because this is where it gets really freaky. The correlations and the fractalization of the solar system is just amazing. For you mathematicians out there, I'll just explain it to you this way. For every one revolution the Earth does around the sun, Jupiter makes it about 30 degrees through its 360-degree rotation. Wait, that sounds weirdly, oddly familiar. 30 per 360? 30 lunar days per 360 solar days, and one Terran, one Earth rotation for every 30 degrees? That sounds really familiar, isn't it? It sounds like a weird, improbable correlation. If the Earth rotates around the sun once, boom, for every 30 degrees that that Jupiter rotates around the same sun, tick, how many times will the Earth need to rotate around the sun for Jupiter to rotate around the sun once? Funny, isn't it? For every single time the Earth does this, Jupiter does this. It's the relation. It's the hour hand versus the minute hand. Yeah, it's the hour hand versus the minute hand. Isn't that like freaky? Isn't that amazing? Absolutely, absolutely amazing. The number is 12, by the way. The Earth rotates around the sun 12 times for every one time Jupiter rotates around the sun. Whoa. Everything in this universe is based on the number 12. Everything that we measure time by is based on the number 12. Do Saturn, do Mars, I don't care, do Venus or something else. It's all a number that's evenly, squarely, perfectly divisible by a multiple of 12. What? Yeah, that's the only reason we can exist, is because of the energy of the number 12, and everything falls into place. Like something happens once, something else happens 12 times. Well, something else big happens once. Something else big happens 12 times. That's just how this particular fourth dimensional experience works in this solar system. But there are 24 hours in a day. No, there aren't. According to the Chinese Bazi system, there are only 12 animals. And the hours are divided into, if you equate them to the modern Roman calendar or Roman clock, every two hours there's a new animal. Amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. Now, is that just weird? No? It's a phenomena of the universe. I'm going to relate this to you so you can understand this a different way. You've all seen snowflakes, right? Do you know how many sides every snowflake has? It's always the same. You're going to freak out when you see this, and when you think about why. If any of you are chemists or physicists, especially like nuclear physicists, you'll understand this phenomena. Again, it's fractals everywhere. Here it is. Now are you starting to see it? Snowflakes. There are only a set number of fixed sides or appendages or legs, and it's always the same. It's always the same. It's always the same. Look at that. There's not a snowflake with 7 sides or 7 appendages. Not 8, not 5. Always hexagonal. And you know why? I mean, look at this stuff. Isn't that fascinating? It's always 6. Here's why. H2O water molecule looks like this. So when you start putting this triangle together, and you have 2 sides of a triangle, you butt them together to its closest side where the valences actually match up. You can't help but get a hexagon because the base structure is 3-sided. Wow, that is fantastic and fascinating. So that's how fractals work. Oh, but that's not all. It's the same thing with everything else. It's absolutely the same thing with everything else. The ratio of stamen to petals to sepals, exactly the same. What are you talking about? I'll tell you, look. You see how there's 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say 5 stamen in here? What, these things that stick up? If there's 5 of these things, then the number of petals are going to be a multiple of 5 as well. If there are 6 of these things, then there's going to either be, if there are 6 stamen in the middle, then there's either going to be 6 petals or 12 petals, or some multiple of 3. If there's 4, it's going to be like 8 petals and then 4 stamen or something like that. It's all that's how fractals work. These things, the ratios are absolutely the same, and you can tell just by looking at. If you get good enough at this, you can look at a leaf. You can literally just look at a. Where's a leaf? Anyway, there's no leaf in here. Or you can actually just look at the petal itself. Here, petal. Let's zoom into what a petal looks like. And you can see the divisions. You see these white lines in all these major divisions. There's 1 white line division, 2. This is a little harder to tell, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major white flows or directions. Am I correct on that? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a little bit harder to tell. Maybe here. Anyway, the number of ripples or the number of white lines here is also exactly the same number of multiples of how many petals there are. So if you want to impress a girl, all you have to do is give her a flower and then tell her to pluck all the petals off the flower, put it in her pocket, and then don't give her a flower, just have her pick a flower somewhere. Have her pluck all the petals and then give you back the rest of the flower so that only the stamen are left and all the petals are gone. All the petals they're just plucked out and they're in their pocket. And all you have to do is count the number of stamen that are left, and you can tell her how many petals there are in her pocket. That's what a fractal is. That's how fractals work. That's how number energy works. This is why Tesla physically never ate in sets of 4, never did anything in sets of 4. Because number energy is it's recursive and it's ripples. It's just ripples. Fascinating, isn't it? Isn't that weird how why genius? You think, well, he's a genius, so he's just slightly nuts. That's why he always does everything in sets of 3, and that's why he always does everything in sets of 9, and never the number 4. It's because these number energies ripples throughout everything that you touch. Fascinating, isn't it? Okay, so now I have to explain to you. I've explained to you the physical mechanics. I've explained to you the physical mechanics of why there are 12 animals for everything, and how we have 4 pillars. Why there are 4 pillars in the Bazi system, and why you have 4 main methods of measuring time: hour, day, month, and year. From a mechanical standpoint, I didn't explain it to you from a physics standpoint. Hang on a second. I'm going to have to make a trade right now. Hold on. So now I'm going to explain to you why there are 12 different animals from a radiation perspective. There are 12 different flavors of radiation. Ah, man, I got to charge my battery. Hang on. Okay, battery plugged in. There are 12 different types of radiation harmonics, which is why we have 12 different animals. Now, if you Google radiation harmonics, you're not going to find anything. You're like, what the hell is that? You know what harmonics is, and you know what radiation is. Radiation also has harmonics. If you look at any note, any musical note that is harmonic, in music there's consonance and dissonance. Consonants, when they are played together, 2 notes are played together, it sounds beautiful, like a chord on a guitar. Sounds great, that's consonance. Whenever there's consonance that happens, funny thing, it actually looks cool to see the wave itself. Huh? What do you mean? Every single sound is a wave. Believe it or not, every single flavor, every single texture, every single color also has a wave to it. Every single flavor has a wave to it? Yeah, it does. Anyway, frequency. So, when 2 sounds are consonant, when they sound good strummed together on the guitar or played together on the piano, it's because every once in a while, the peaks and valleys match up. In other words, you've seen sine waves, right? That go up and down like this. If this one went up and down like this, there's a peak here and a peak there, and a peak here and a peak there. But there might be another note that hits this bottom, and then it goes much slower, but still hits the same top, and it skips the top. So I'll draw it for you. It looks kind of like this. Screw it, I'm not going to draw it for you. These are much better. You see the red and blue lines? You see how the tops and bottoms never match up? See how these things never match up here? There's like no top and bottom that matches up. So these notes, when played together, don't sound good. Here, when these notes are played together, they actually match up right here. They match up once. When that happens, it sounds good together. It's like this. If you were to see, this is one half cycle of a sine wave. Anyway, if you go here, this second wave matches perfectly with this one. It actually matches with this one as well, except the valley here matches the peak here. But here, the valley matches the valley. You see that? Matches the peak, matches the valley. So these peaks and valleys, if they match up, they sound good. If they don't match up, they sound bad together. So the notes don't sound good together when these things look something like... See, these are good. Actually, this is the same. This is, yeah. These peaks and valleys all perfectly match up. These, do they match up every once in a while? At first glance, doesn't look like any of these things match up in this. Anyway, these things have to match up for the sounds to sound good together. If they don't, they sound like... It sounds horrible together if you strung the wrong notes or played the violin incorrectly because your finger placement's wrong. So that's how harmonics works. So now we're getting to the meat of it. We're on the Earth, and the sun itself is constantly emitting all sorts of different, interesting. Are you starting to get the big picture? The sun is emitting all sorts of different waves, radiation waves, all sorts of different waves all the time, constantly. And the moon is reflecting back some of those waves. So is Jupiter. But Jupiter is also emitting waves. They may not be as strong in terms of sound waves, but gravitational waves. Did you just say gravitational waves? Yes, look it up. Scientists just discovered that gravity can be expressed in waves or in particles, except that's exactly the same thing with quantum physics of whether it's observed or not, it becomes a wave or a particle. Anyway, so scientists just literally discovered the gravity particle, and they theorized that gravity comes in waves. But so the influence of the moon, the influence of the Earth's own rotation on its own axis, and the radiation from the sun. As we start rotating closer to the sun and then farther away and then closer and then farther away and then closer to the sun. And as we do one of these things, Jupiter's out here going, you're getting closer to me, farther to me, closer to me. So all these things are happening simultaneously. Oh shit, my battery is a problem again here. These wavelengths change. These wavelengths go big, and then they go really, really tiny, and then they go really big again, and they change. And so depending on what year you were born, relative to how much influence you get from Jupiter, how far away you are from Jupiter, depending on what month you were born, the relationship between how much lunar reflection and lunar gravity you're getting, and depending on what day you were born, how close you are to the sun itself as you travel around the sun 360 so days a year, and the hour you were born, you get totally different types of wavelengths from the sun. Whoa. Yeah, whoa. Not whoa enough yet. If you don't understand the import of that, let me put it to you this way. As you get closer to the sun, you speed up. And you slow down as you get farther away from the sun. The same thing with Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter's out there too. Then you slow down. So here you're getting less solar energy. You're getting less solar gravity. You're just getting less of everything. You're getting less of dynamic chi. Chi is just a word for anything that's energetic. So chi is a word for radiation. It's a word for particles. It's a word for anything that's energetic. You're just getting less chi if you're farther away from here. And you're getting more chi if you're close to the sun. So is it better if I'm born closer to the sun? Not necessarily. Maybe the energy that you're getting when you're close to the sun isn't the kind of energy you want for the human experience on this planet right now in this century. How do I know that? Well, you do it by looking at your year, month, day, and hour Chinese astrological symbol sign. Really? The amount of radiation you get differs as you rotate around. It's called the Doppler effect. You've heard of the Doppler effect? I'm going to show it to you. Here it is. Here's the Doppler effect. Here's the Doppler effect. You've seen it with police sirens, or you've seen it with a car honking. As it approaches you, is what it sounds like. As it drives away from you, because the sound waves are slow enough. They're slow enough to where if the car is going the opposite direction, as the sound waves are heading towards you, then they get stretched out. But if the car is approaching at 100 miles an hour, as the sound wave is also approaching you, then the sound waves get crunched together. Here, so this is what it sounds like. Hold on, let me raise the volume on this. Ready? Okay, ready? This is what it sounds like. Anyway, that's annoying. Whew. Okay, so now that you understand how the radiation changes as you approach and go away from the sun or Jupiter or the moon, and as you rotate on your own axis on the Earth, now you know that as you have all these different varying factors in reflection and direct source gravity influencing you, you're born at a time with all sorts, you're in a mishmash, in the juxtaposition of different radioactive waves. And as you've seen with the harmonics, with the sound wave things, some waves are just not good together with other waves. That's just all there is to it. Some waves sound great together, some waves do not sound great together at all. That's all there is to it. It's like, the easiest way to explain this is with a piano. Imagine instead of a piano being straight across like left and right, imagine if the piano keys were laid out right along the Earth's orbit around the sun. So the piano is round now. So to play this round piano, you have to play it like this. Ding, 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 like this. If you had to play the piano like this, that's exactly what Bazi or saju palja comes from. The different frequencies that happen from the four main gravitational and radioactive, radial emission sources. So some sound good together, some don't sound good together. Which means, now this is how no, I didn't explain this part. Man, this is getting exhaustive, literally to me, physically, and from a content standpoint. I've explained to you the how everything breaks down into 12 from a mechanical planetary perspective, but I didn't explain to you how everything breaks down into 12. Why 12 is such a huge number in our solar system. Why everything falls under 12s, which is weird because, like, how did God of the nation of Israel know that there should be 12 tribes, and why Jesus had 12 apostles? Maybe if that was all mythological, then did they just somehow figure out that the number 12 was, I don't know, a nicely 12 is a dozen eggs. Like, why? Why did they choose the number 12? 12 inches in the... Anyway, there's a bunch of other questions that come up, but in this particular solar system, the number 12 is what everything gets divided by. But the fact that I showed you that the ratio between Saturn and Earth and the Moon and the Sun is 12 is just an example of the fractal of 12. It's just one manifestation of the harmonics of 12. I haven't explained to you the harmonics of 12. Holy shit, is there more? Yes, there's more, but you have to understand this because it's... if you don't understand this as well, the underlying mechanics of physics and the math behind this, you're going to go away still thinking, oh, Chinese astrology is, it's just statistically kind of okay. It's statistically 63% accurate, and it's just based on superstition. That's what you're going to go think. So, if you want to know when you can make the most amount of money, if you want to know when you're best trying to hit on a girl, hit on a guy, or if you're a girl, hit on another girl, then the best way to know that is to know your Chinese horoscope and get it interpreted correctly, accurately, precisely. And so I'm explaining to you why you can trust it. If you get it accurately interpreted, but you don't trust it and you don't act in accordance with the result of your Chinese horoscope reading, then you're not going to have the positive effect you want. You're not going to make the money you want. You're not going to find the love you want. So you have to trust that your reading is accurate. And the way to trust that the reading is accurate is to understand that the reading of the Chinese astrology is based on actual physics. So here's the actual physics, not just an example of how it works out in the planets. Yeah, man. Time is of the fourth dimension. We all know that. But why is time the fourth dimension? A dimension is just something you can measure. It's a new thing that you can measure that didn't exist in a lower dimension. So, what's lower than 4? 3. Duh. What's lower than 3? 2. What's lower than 2? 1. What's lower than 1? 0. Okay, so what's zero dimensional? What is no dimension? Either nothing or a point. A point, you draw a dot. It's just a point. It has no dimensions. If a dot has no dimensions, how many different vectors or directions or energies, directional energies can you get from that dot? 0. It has 0 dimensions. If you're stuck inside of a dot, you can't go anywhere. You're stuck inside of a dot. Now, let's go from 0 to 1. Peter Thiel's favorite book. One dimension is a line. How many different directions can you go on a line? I just showed you. It's a line. You can go this way or that way. If the line is like this, then you can go this way or that way. Right? 2. So in a zero-dimensional setting, you can't go anywhere. You have 0. In a one-dimensional setting, you can go 2 different directions. You have 2 different chis. You have 2 different vectors that you can go. Equal and opposite. The minimum number of equal and opposite. Interesting. What about in a 2-dimensional environment? In a 2-dimensional context, not a line, but if we take this line and we actually add 1 more dimension to it, bink, and we stretch it out, bloof. Now instead of just length, we have length and width. That makes it 2-dimensional. How many different, what are the minimum number of equal and opposite vectors or directions you can go? I can't show you because I'm using my tripod. It's 3. Look at it this way. It's like this. If you have a dot, you can't go anywhere out of the dot. So this is the no sign. It should be in red. But anyway, if it's a dot, you can't go anywhere. If it's a line, this dot can go in either direction on the line. So that's 2. So this is 0. This is 2. I guess this is mirrored, but anyway, you can see it. What if you have a plane, length and width? What if you have a plane, length and width? Then you can go in this many directions. Minimum, equal, and opposite. Here. Ta-da! 3. 3 dimensions. Or 3 vectors. Why is that important? Because the solar system itself, man, my battery is an issue. The solar system itself is not in space. Wait, what did you just say? Yeah, the solar system is not in space. The solar system itself is in plane. What does that even mean? I'll show you. Ta-da! As a kid, I always hated these drawings. Literally always hated these drawings because I thought this is so stupid. Why would they draw all these planets? I was like 6 years old when I thought, why would they draw all these planets on the same plane, on a plate, as if it's flat, when there's space? Shouldn't there be a planet up here and then a planet down here and then a planet way out here? Shouldn't planets be like all over the place? But no, they're nicely on one flat disk. All the planets are on one flat disk. Like, look at this one. This is absolutely stupid. Why isn't there a planet up here or a planet down here? Shouldn't there be a planet like right down here, or even down like planet should be here? Why would they actually make these things look like it's rotating on a plate? Because it is. The way all the planets rotate around the sun doesn't use space, it just uses plane. That's all it does. There is no planet that rotates. If the Earth rotates like this around the sun, like this around the sun, there's not some other planet that rotates like, hey, I'm going to go this way. If you're going to zig, I'm going to zag. Nothing like that. It doesn't do that. Planets don't do that. What, are you kidding me? No, I'm not kidding you. As the planets move in this direction, another planet moves in this direction. In fact, the only planet that, and they all rotate in the same direction. As they spin this way, they rotate this way too. So it's spinning and rotating in this way. Spinning and rotating. The only planet that they all spin in the same direction, but the only planet that rotates the other direction as it crisscrosses is Venus, which is how the Earth and Venus have a yin-yang relationship, because the Earth spins this way and Venus spins the other way. So they both spin this way. They both go around the sun in the same direction, but they spin this way as they go around the sun differently. Hence the yin-yang. Anyway, so now that you know that all those planets move around the sun in a planar fashion, and there are only three minimum number of directions. Here's the sun, here's the Earth, here's the moon, and here's Jupiter. Okay, sun, Earth, moon, Jupiter. Okay, right here in this drawing. Sun, Earth, moon, Jupiter. I know you can't see it, but anyway, Earth moves around this way, the moon moves around this way, and then Jupiter moves around this way too. So here are their orbits drawn. Sun is in the middle, and this is how they move. Now you combine these two drawings. It's in a plane. The minimum equal and opposite vectors is the number 3. So from the Earth's perspective, you have 1, 2, and 3 vectors. See, this is 1, 2, and 3 vectors. And you have 4 bodily elements. You can get a total number of only 12 wavelengths of radiation. Wavelength chords of radiation. Bam. Four planets, 3 vectors. So the total number of outcomes that you can have is just 12 total. You can't get any other types of, you can't get 13 different types of energies. You can't get 13 types of mixtures. How else do I explain this? It's kind of like, let's say you had 4 cups. Let's say you had 4 cups and 3 ingredients total. You had milk, chocolate, and then you had cinnamon. 3 ingredients, and you had 4 cups. How many different ways can you mix those ingredients up? 12 total. 4 times, actually that's a bad example because cups are in silos. Anyway, that's exactly how that works. So that's why this entire solar system, or any other solar system where there are only 4 major gravitational impulses. Could there be a solar system with like, where Earth has 2 different moons? Sure. Where the planet with life on it has 2 different, could there be a solar system where instead of the strongest gravity being Jupiter, It's Jupiter and Venus, the two closest planets, or the Jupiter and Mars, let's say, have the same amount of gravity impact on the planet with life on it. Sure, whatever. Then it would break this number of 12. Then what would happen is that planet would have 5 times 3, 15. That planet would have 15 different animals. And that planet would have 15 months a year. That planet would have 15 hours in a day. And 15 hours at night, which would mean 30 hours total. That's how that works. Fascinating, isn't it? That these absolute geniuses figured this out. Okay, so now, how does this actually impact your life? It's like this. There are only 12 different types of harmonics. It's like, I wish every one of you, I wish I could know that every single one of you played music. Because for as many different chords as there are, there's like the F chord, and then there's a D chord, and there's, when you play guitar, there's all sorts of chords that sound good together. For every one of those chords, you have a certain number of notes that sound good together that you have to play at the same time. Sometimes it's like 3, or sometimes it's 4 strings you have to hold together. Sometimes on a piano it could be like, I don't know, all 10 fingers? I've never played the piano, so I don't know. Do all 10 fingers come in and create a consonant chord on a piano? Maybe. Maybe it's 8. But whatever you do, where you were born, and the planets, Jupiter, the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun's collective amount of energy that they put out, that you received when you were born, will harmonize with people that were born at harmonic frequencies, and will be dissonant with people that were born on dissonant frequencies, just like the keys on the keyboard, or just like the keys in the piano that don't sound good together. Now, so what is money then? What animal is money? When was money created? Funny questions. If you want money, shouldn't you try to make money when money has a favorable harmonic to you? If you're trying to find love or a relationship, shouldn't you go out and hit on people and have dates with people and meet with people when love itself, when the opposite sex or the same sex, or whatever you're into, or the right pronoun for you, is at a harmonic frequency to the frequency that you were born in. That's how the Chinese astrology works. So if you look at the Chinese almanac, I'm going really deep here, but there's something called the Chinese almanac, Farmer's Almanac, and it says there are times to build, there's a time to sign contracts, there's a time to plant, there's a time to clean the floor, there's a time to actually like skip dinner and stuff. There's a time to invite people over for food. There's a time to all sorts of stuff. There's a time to buy livestock, and then there's a time to sell eggs, and then there's a time that you shouldn't touch eggs at all. And you think, oh my God, this is like such weird mythology, and it's not. Because eggs were, if you remember that dial with all sorts of like subdivided parts, that huge feng shui dial with more and more parts. You can subdivide, just like you can take a sine wave and subdivide that and subdivide that and subdivide that into more and more waves. Eggs, or building, or cleaning, or buying land, or signing a contract, they all have different harmonic energies. And so you want to do these things when the timing for it is right, and the timing for it is right for you. Because not only were you born with the specific four energies, the four pillars, the four radiational frequencies with which you were born with, you're also living within now. Right now, there's totally different radiational frequencies than the moment you were born. And then if you're trying to do something that in and of itself, that action itself has different radiational, I'm just going to say radiational frequencies. Then you have to ask, are these frequencies going to be harmonic with my frequency and be harmonic with this moment right now? That's what the Chinese astrology thing does and gives you. It gives you the best times to work, the best times to save money, the best times to invest, the best times to risk, the best times to go out and hit on somebody, the best times to get married, the best times to sign a contract, the best time to buy a house, the best time to sell a house, the best time to build a house, the best time to learn a new skill, the best time to just chill out and do nothing because everything else you try and do will get wrecked anyway, so you're better off just chilling out and learning or studying. It tells you the best times for that because, man, everybody knows that if you try and have a picnic during a typhoon or a hurricane, things aren't going to go well for you. If you absolutely have to go out and do some kind of sport and there's a hurricane or a typhoon, there are ways to do it, like surfing, longboarding. And if you're good at it, you can have the best time of your life, even when all of the stars are aligned against you. And it's not the stars that are aligned against you, as you know, it's the sun, the Earth's rotation, and the moon, and just Jupiter. It's just those four things. So the only question that's left is, when am I going to make money? When am I going to fall in love? When am I going to... That depends, again, on your own chart and your own birth year, birth month, birth date, and birth hour. Relative to right now. What energy is being put out by the universe right now, and is it harmonic? Is it harmonic for you? To find that out, just subscribe to my YouTube. Just subscribe to this YouTube, and I'm going to make a Telegram room that discusses this in more detail, and we'll discuss each of your own Feng Shui, 풍수지리, saju, palja. And I'm going to give you precise timings on when to buy stocks and when to sell stocks, and when to buy crypto and when to sell crypto. Because after all, you're going to need some kind of practical way to make money, right? So let's do this together. Let's get you rich. Or richer than you already are. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and let's get to know each other.